Gamers of Reddit, what is a game that has a special meaning to you, because what was going on in your life when you played it, or who you played it with? Left 4 Dead 1 and 2. Used to play it all time with a friend of mine. He started an engineering degree, then got a girlfriend, and now I don't know where he is. Can't play the games without thinking about him. Hope he's doing good. Reach out. I've tried through the few methods I have left. Different emails, Steam, Xbox, his brother that I still set from time to time. I haven't changed any of my contact information since then. Just don't think he wants to be in touch. Ratchet and Clank series. When my wife and I started dating, we replayed a few of the first, taking turns back and forth. It was a blast, and we continued the process with each new one as they came out. Me too. I used to play it with my brother and a friend of ours. We didn't see him often, so playing on the PlayStation 3 with my brother and him was something special. I remember my brother was that mayor, my friend the evil dude, and I ratched. Once I clicked random buttons, and it turns out it was a cheat code for level. Morrowind. Spent 2 years playing that game, and one solid summer when we moved to the south from the northeast UK. I lived in Tamriel that summer and I loved it. Never have or will play anything like that again. Tamriel is one of my all-time favorite fantasy worlds ever. Skyrim was the first game I truly fell in love with. Went back and played Oblivion afterwards, and loved it almost as much. I haven't yet played Morrowind, but I will one day. Morrowind is currently on Gamma Ultimate for Xbox. I downloaded it on my Xbox One last night while I slept, looking forward to starting it up when I get off work. Gauntlet Legends for the N64. It's the only game of its kind that our older sister played with my brother and me. We went through all of it and beat Scorn together, and we've never played like that again. It was glorious and precious. She'll still play the original Super Smash Bros. With us, too. But that first game was magical. Sustenance. Down the hatch. My parents were very restrictive on TV usage my entire young life, allowing 1 hour each day with some exceptions for educational programs. Video game time came out of that 1 hour, so I could never really play through lengthy or involved games. Then I got chickenpox and was quarantined to my room for the greatest week of my young life. They set up the northeasts and a small TV. I played through Super Mario Bros. 1 2 3, Conflict, Contra, Bubble Bobble, Double Dragon 2nd, and made a doomed run at Battletoads. Anytime I see these games I'm brought back to that time. Separately, my dad ran the school planetarium. When I was in high school, he had to spend some time on the weekends working on things. At times, I could come and fiddle around when he was working. One weekend he allowed me to bring 3 friends and we hooked the N64 up to the planetarium projector on the dome. We played Star Fox 64 with the stars on, GoldenEye 007, and Mario Kart. A high watermark of the times. I honestly don't know which is cooler, that you played video games in a planetarium, or the fact that your school had a planetarium. One of those rural schools that got space race money in the 50s and 60s to build them. Sadly, the conservative school board decided in the late 2000s, after spending $1 million to renovate and update it, that they didn't think it had any. They tore it apart and stuck it in a trailer, and my dad retired. Zelda, Link to the Past. My mother died of lung cancer in 1998. We played a few games together, but LTTP always stands out. If she couldn't beat a boss, she would hand me the controller and say, "Kill this for me." I was mind blown by how good LTTP was when I recently played it. Even though it was decades older than current games today, holds up so well even without the nostalgia factor. Absolutely. If you like that and haven't played A Link Between Worlds, then I highly recommend it. It's the spiritual successor and I think it lived up to that description. To the Moon. It's a retro-looking RPG on PC. That story revolves around loss. There is no combat, strictly story, but it's such a well-done story. When I played it, I was pretty depressed, having lost quite a few people in my life: cancer, dementia, overdose, heart attack, and it honestly helped me cope a great deal. To the moon for me as well. I played that game when I was dealing with a lot of sleep, and I feel like it was the perfect game for the time I was having. It's so simple, but it says a lot. The sequel Finding Paradise I initially didn't like as much, but there's something about that one that makes me think about it a lot. The other one for me is A Beginner's Guide. This game said a lot of things that I needed to hear at the time, and I think it's the most important game I've played in terms of how it affected me. Highly recommend. Stardew Valley. After my husband died suddenly and unexpectedly, my son and his wife bought a Switch and Stardew Valley for me. He moved the bedroom TV into the living room next to the TV there, and would come over once a week on his day off, and taught me to play. I was so bad at it, but would play for hours through many winter sleepless nights. He's tried to introduce me to other games, but I haven't been able to get into them. It really took me out of my shock and grief. U/Concerned Ape created this game, and is a redditor as well. Celeste. It helped me realize that I've been plagued by panic attacks my whole life. I thought everyone was like that. Also gave me ways to cope with them. My dad played Lego Star Wars with me, and I always remember that as the first video game I played and him teaching me. I miss you, Dad. Such a good game. I used to play with my brother back on the PS2 when I was younger. Glad you've got those memories with your dad. 3. To me it was Guild Wars. I started to play with my 2 best friends, met another friend online. I encountered my now wife thanks to said guy. We played it for years and then went to Guild Wars 2, but we had grown older and it simply was not the same anymore. Guild Wars community has always been great. Dark Souls. My wife left me in 2012, and I hadn't seen my 3-year-old daughter in a month while we figures out custody, and the ex was keeping me from her. I was mainly working, not sleeping, going to the gym, and drinking. My friends all gave me the "gee, that's too bad," but I got my own problems speech. I hadn't gamed in years and my brother gave me his 360 till I got one of my own. I bought Dark Souls 4-5 from a Game Stop No Box and special sale at the time. I also worked in an office that was closing, but I was essential. So I spent most my time alone as everyone around me quit or was fired. I started playing Dark Souls every day after work and was constantly looking up lore and stuff about the game as it was kicking my ass. It totally consumed my attention after hours, and it made me cut back on my drinking so I could beat tougher bosses like Sif and later Artorias the Abyss Walker. I credit Dark Souls distracting me from the crushing loneliness of my life at the time. My routine was leave work, hit the gym for an hour, eat healthy, play Dark Souls, call my kid for 15 minutes every night, and then play Dark Souls till I had to sleep. I think I only slept 3 hours a night for the first few months. Thanks Dark Souls. My early 20s weren't fun times. I tried killing myself, then spent a lot of time in and out of psychiatric hospitals while on heavy doses of lithium and a variety of antipsychotics. The treatment I was on gave me pretty severe memory loss and made concentration nearly impossible. I didn't enjoy music, games, driving, food, but nothing really hurt. I was very hollow. Finally, I changed psychiatrists and she had me drop a bunch of prescriptions. Suddenly I started enjoying things again. Dark Souls was the first game I played coming out of that chasm, and I was still pretty delusional. I thought the chosen undead's quest to break the curse was my own quest to break my own curse. I had a very good psychiatrist at that time and there was a lot of healing going on. But Dark Souls came to me during a difficult and transformative period of my life, and I'm very thankful it did. It helped me get better, in its own way. I hope someday I can thank the people behind that game. It's crazy how the game doesn't pull you from depression. It creates an environment where struggle is relatable, objectives are hard to see and progress is painful. At some point you realize how closely it mirrors real life and you might find the same enjoyment from life as you got in this game. Masterpiece. RuneScape. It gave me simple menial tasks and congratulated me for small things while I struggled through depression. It meant a lot to me to even just have some reason to get out of bed, to talk to my clanmates too. RuneScape just hit different in the 8th grade. Old school RuneScape exists, but it's not the same because we've changed as we've gotten older. In the past it was about just having fun and the joy of exploration and discovery. Now, adult me and just about everyone else I know plays it in a much more goal-oriented way, where you're just trying to complete goals as quickly as possible. Getting money quickly, getting levels quickly, sprinting through quests, etc. Instead of fun and discovery, it's chores. Knights of the Old Republic. Because when it came out, I was going through a bad breakup and was not dealing with it well. Playing through the game was a nice distraction from what was going on, that it helped get me through those first few months. That is my favorite game of all time. I wasn't alive when it came out, but through my dad I love old games like Dune, Ogre Battle, Cotter, Baldur's Gate, etc. I'm 15 and kinda sad almost nobody plays these anymore. I'll always enjoy them. Cotter is my favorite too. Whenever there's an AskReddit about favorite video games I scroll until I find Cotter. Skyrim. Like many others on here, it found me at a time where I didn't know what to do with myself. I'd watched a lot of Skyrim Let's Plays on YouTube when I was younger, shout out to Jays, but never got the chance to actually get into it. Depression was hitting me really hard at the time, and when I found it on sale on Steam, I bought it on a whim. 2 days later, booted it up, and was instantly hooked. I remember waking up at 8, playing till 12, eating my first meal of the day in a 10-minute period of stuffing bread into my mouth, then getting back at it until 7 in the evening. I'd get some real food, by real food I mean cooked rice and tea, and going right back to completing Dark Brotherhood quests. 2 was my bedtime. This cycle repeated itself for about a month and a half, until I finally mellowed out. The thing was, it worked. My mind was too enamored by the little things in it to care about anything else in the real world. Every waking moment was spent on imagining how to get better armor, complete another quest, etc. So, even if it isn't objectively the best game I ever played, I'll always remember the fun times I had with it. Hail Sithis. Same man. But the fact you were only 8 makes me feel old, lol. Woke up at 8. TF2. I made a small group of forever friends on there. People come and go in the group, but the few that are always there make it worthwhile. Undefined. Oh god, this one hits. I played for UGC League Highlander and ran my own team. Just having banter before a match or after, or going to a public game to unwind after a match and just stomp people / run a silly setup, 9 medics all taking turns uber-cutting each other, while some uber sorta builds his up while invisible. We were a close group. Life seemed to happen over the years and now few vanished from my friends list, or from Steam entirely. Last online, 546 days ago. Godspeed. Pokemon Heart Gold. It is very special to me because it was the first video game I've ever played. My sister gave it to me along with her old DS. I still remember needing her help all the time, cause I didn't understand it well. I was like 6 when I got it. I played it to death, but could never beat Red, until I took the game and replayed it. I beat him, and I nearly cried, cause it was like all the frustration I had as a kid trying to beat him was gone. Such simple joys a kid can have. Pokemon games in general, man. I remember the first time I caught Kyogre in Sapphire. I was crying cause it took so long, and I finally did it, after like half an hour of trying and failing. Pokemon games now, when I'm an adult, still make me cry the first time I beat the story / get into the Hall of Fame. I'm man enough to admit it. Destiny 1. My friend straight up bought me a PS4, so we could play together, and at that point in my life it was a welcome reminder that not all people are speep. Lots of good memories from that game with him. So many of my fondest gaming memories are from Destiny 1. From beating King's Fall with half a fire team speaking only French, to 2-manning Crota, to the moment I screamed at the top of my lungs when I got Gjallarhorn. That game was legendary. Your first clear in a new raid is an experience unlike any other. Peeping love Destiny. So looking forward to Voji coming back next season. Destiny. After 3 years in Iraq I had the worst PTSD and FPS games were out. They are my bread and butter, so losing them just felt like another sacrifice. Destiny was just the right blend of sci-fi and RPG to disassociate the gunplay from my trauma. It helped build me up for exposure therapy and acts as a way to zone out. When I'm recovering from panic attacks, something about the precision shots really calms me down. The community is pretty good too. I picked up Destiny again after I left my wife back in September. It's enough sci-fi to keep my attention, but also a comfortable game to space out to. Hope you continue to heal. I've been playing D1 since launch. Just got divorced from my abusive and manipulative wife and it's helping put the pieces of myself back together. Eyes up, Guardian. Minecraft. When I was in high school that was the go-to game for my friends and I. And after my best friend graduated and moved away, it was the main way we stayed in contact. The first time I played it, after he passed away, I legitimately cried. Sorry for the loss. Metal Gear Solid. I was 12 when it came out in the US, and it was the first game I really got sucked into that wasn't something I played with my older brother. I had played games all the way through before, but Metal Gear Solid was a whole different level compared to the relatively childish games I had been playing, like Crash Bandicoot, or Sonic, and Earthworm Jim on Sega. The original Final Fantasy VII. Played it with my sister as young preteens. Good memories. I used to watch my older brother play Final Fantasy games before I was brave enough to play on my own. It was probably our most genuine bonding experience, and I fully credit him for my passion for video games. Loss. Ocarina of Time, because it was played with friends as we switched off on the controller while the others were navigating and helping to solve dungeon puzzles. Loss. BOTW, because I was able to do the same with my daughter. Ocarina of Time is goddamn amazing. A group of 4 of us neighborhood kids including my sister spent hours and days back to back playing it on N64. And we weren't going online looking at cheat codes, we really earned all those levels. I can still feel the frustration trying to get that bratty princess out of the whale when you just wanted to leave her ass in there. Reminds me of a time of innocence we will never get back as we were kids with no jobs, no responsibilities, and our biggest concern was strategizing to beat the next level. Pure bliss. This OOT has a special place in my heart/soul. I played this game for the first time in middle school. We just moved to a new state and this game was a catalyst that helped me make friends. I picked it up again senior year of college with my roommates. Thinking about the game always brings me back to that time. Damn. If only I could play an Ocarina and go back to those days. Half-Life. We used to play deathmatch over the company LAN after work. This was before it departments got all professional and locked that sort of thing down, plus the opposite guy was one of the players. If any of those guys are editors and see this, it's the same graybeard. So many good times. Weirdly enough, Maple Story. Got into it because of my older brother when I was 10. Learned most of my English from it at early age. Looking back, it wasn't that great of a game. My very first MMO though. Met my wife while playing Ark. Survival Evolved. Our first date happened because we were talking about video games, and I said yeah, I'm playing a dinosaur game at the moment, and she was so interested that I invited her over to play. I played it with my first love, but after our breakup I deinstalled it. There were some great memories in that game. I used to play video games while my ex-GF watched YouTube videos. One day I started playing The Last of Us, and she just straight up loved to watch me play it. She's not very good at games, so she would tell me where to go, and I would do it for her. It was so much fun watching her light up making progress through the story. I loved it so much. We got into a fight over us having kids and split up. We never finished it together. I never played it again. It hurts too much. A poignant question indeed. My dad visited me late last year. It was a surprise. He just showed up. He had bought a heart monitor for my partner as she had some runs of tachycardia. And we had talked about that just a few days earlier. We all hung out for a few hours. I showed him the scene in Star Wars where the stormtrooper bops his head as he had amazingly never noticed it. We played Mario Kart on my Switch. I jokingly didn't tell him all the controls to start with. In the third race I mentioned power sliding and boosting, and then he thrashed me in the final two. He was always a great gamer even in his 50s. It was a lovely surprise visit as we hadn't seen much of each other for the last year. He died suddenly 2 months later. I haven't been able to even think about playing it since. Peep me, that story turned. Lost my dad in his 50s too. He was never a gamer, but we had something similar a few months before he died. Me, being the fat kid in the family, challenged my brothers to a sprint. My dad was pumped. He tried to run on the way to the race, but his hip wouldn't let him. In a ho, he calls the race and we take off. My older brother was super fast in his prime, and I was on his tail for the whole race, and my little brother was right behind me. My dad was super excited just watching his son sprint, and even more, so that we nearly caught his son, who legitimately fast. Halo. It's an amazing game to start with, but me and a friend used to split screen the campaign every couple of months. Just a night in, some beers, some snacks, talking smack and acting like we were some elite military unit with our own communication protocols. But it also helped me through some tough times. After a loss, I swear I must have played through that game 5 times over the course of a weekend. It was just a time when it was the only thing that made sense to me. Not so good times, but I can almost look back on it fondly now. Also, it's fashionable to hate on it, but the library is a masterpiece of game design. The tension, confusion and claustrophobia are masterful, and the shortage of ammo means you're constantly churning through different weapons in order to keep going. Maybe it's nostalgia, but nothing else has ever made combat seem so hectic. Halo 2 Online. Team Slayer Lockout. Good times. Team Fortress Classic. TFC was the first game I ever played with my wife. We and a bunch of our friends would take over the computer lab at college in the middle of the night on the weekends and just play tons of TFC. Titanfall 2. My all-time favorite game. Got it while my parents were going through a divorce that had been coming on for a few years at that point. When I was younger I was pretty prone to getting angry at games, but never Titanfall 2. Animal Crossing. I was on a second date with a guy when we were in our mid-20s, and we started talking about video games and how we both played Animal Crossing, and he asked if I wanted to go back to his house to see his Animal Crossing Town City Folk for the Wii. Turns out he actually meant it and proudly showed off his manicured flower gardens. It has become a bit of a running joke that was the pickup line he used, and how successful it was. We've been together for 10 years now, happily married with a new baby. We still play Animal Crossing. Also, both of our moms play too, so it has allowed us to have a fun connection with our moms too. Very wholesome. Animal Crossing. I hadn't heard of the game when my mother gifted me the GameCube game. Brothers and I had fun playing. They complained that the villagers only wanted me to complete tasks. My mother has since passed. Any mail that my mother in game sends gets saved. Undefined. I play Animal Crossing too. I started in April 2020. My mom became ill in May and passed in June. The game helped me through it all. I still do the same thing you do. Any mail from mom in the game gets saved, and the items from her are on display. I'm sorry about your mom, Zoe. Thank you. I'm sorry to hear about your mother as well. We had 9 months from finding out she had cancer to death. I probably should add this. About 12 years after she passed, I moved. I lost anything electronic that I didn't move myself. I lost my 2 GameCubes. Thankfully, my memory cards and controllers had been packed with my Wii. It was a bit before I could get my games out of storage. I thought I had taken all the games out of my systems. I booted up my Wii, found out there was a disc in system. It was my copy of Animal Crossing for the GameCube. I was off work for a month and a half before I found out I had cancer. I was bouncing in between Animal Crossing on Wii, SM4 and pubg on the Wii U. I'm currently trying to rework 2 of my rooms. I keep the puppy plush mom sends out since it's something my mother loved. I've got a toy cocker spaniel owned by her on my shelves. Breath of the Wild. Gaming has been a critical part of my life since I was a kid and my parents owned a video/rental store. I grew up on gaming and grew into gaming, making it my eventual career. But over the past 7 to 8 years, gaming had grown stale for me. I found myself not finishing games anymore. Tired of the media hype cycles. Even seeing a lot of it as a chore. I began to see it as something that was keeping me from living my life and something I needed to just grow out of. Zelda was always a special series for me. So upon the announcement of pubg, I decided I'd make that my swan song to gaming. My last game before I hang my controller up and move on. pubg blew me away. Not because it was a perfect game, far from it, but because it captured that sense of adventure that made me love gaming to begin with. It wasn't just exploring the imagination of others. Its experimentation and design helped me to explore mine. It made me a child again. And it taught me 2 important lessons. 1. That an adventure is an adventure. Whether it's in real life or digital. Whether you're exploring the natural world or an imaginative one. And that these experiences in gaming or any fiction are as valuable and worthy as any in life. 2. To not approach gaming as a chore. To drop this completionist/optimization mentality of having to experience every part of something to fully understand it. Because the experience is simply my experience within it, and it's complete when I'm done. I don't need to check every box or taste everything a game has to offer to make some sort of objective, rather just appreciate my own personal, subjective experience for what it is, my experience. Not only has this reinvigorated my love/passion for gaming and doubled down on a career I was going to exit, but it stretched into other facets of my life. I realized how poisonous this completionist and perfectionist mentality is, and how pointless it is to chase after objectivity, and how important it is in life to appreciate that objectivity doesn't trump subjectivity, but rather that all of this is subjective. Our experiences are what they are, and don't need to be any more or less. You echoed a lot of the feelings I had when I reluctantly bought a Switch and Breath of the Wild at launch 4 years ago. Every year I was playing fewer games and completing even less. I don't do online multiplayer, and I have no patience for RPG style character building stuff which is now in every single player game. But Breath of the Wild sparked my old passion for gaming that I had been missing for so long. On top of that, my first son was born a few days before this came out. I spent so many nights playing pubg while he slept next to me, attend to him when he woke, then right back to the game when he went to sleep. So that game is emotionally tied to his birth for me. Mine was Kingdom Hearts. I personally discovered the game after I developed anxiety. I've played all the games several times, my comfort games. However, my true love for the games come on when my son discovered the games. He was only interested in them due to the Disney characters on the cover. Needless to say, it's no longer my game, it's our game. Watching my son get enjoyment out of something that brought me countless hours of happiness just warms my heart. That's awesome. KH was a huge part of my childhood. I had all the strategy guides and would place the Trinity stickers that came with the first around the house, like on the steps, and told my mom she had to come get me to use them, lol. I hope my kids share the same love for it like you've been able to share with yours. Spider-Man PS4. Back when I was a kid, I had a special degree of attachment to Peter Parker as a character, as I'm sure many others did. I remember being at the mall with my father and seeing the PS2 Spider-Man 2 video game on the shelves and asking him if we could get it. I remember my father then telling me we didn't have a console and couldn't play it, nor could we afford one. My family immigrants was pretty poor back then, and my parents had to work a lot of late nights. I never got to play SM2 in the years after, but I would always hear about how it was the pinnacle of superhero video games, and how nothing else quite captured the same magic it seemed I would never get to experience. We weren't so lacking in money that we couldn't buy any video games or toys or anything. It's just that it was difficult to justify buying a console when we already had PCs for work and I could play video games on those instead of needing to drop another few hundred. Then, a few years ago, Spider-Man on PS4 was announced and released to largely positive reviews, gaining a reputation as being comparable to the PS2 game that I never got to play. Fortunately, my family is in a much better place financially now, and I was actually able to buy a PS4 along with a copy of the GOTY edition of the game. I got to come home from full semester and play it over winter break along with my longtime girlfriend. It isn't often that you get to make your inner child as happy as I was that day, finally getting to do something I'd wanted to for so long, alongside someone that I feel comfortable enough to be a kid around. It was nice. Red Dead Redemption 2. My girlfriend of over 10 years broke up with me in March of 2020, right as the pandemic started. And a week later I was laid off. Also, we continued to live together because of everything that was going on in the world. Playing that game for hours at a time gave me light in a dark point in my life. I would just ride my horse and get lost in the environment and the gameplay. So, yeah, Red Dead. My guy. For me it is Grim Fandango. Feel like that was peak adventure gaming for me. Life just seemed good around the time it was released. Replayed it recently and brought back so many good memories both of the game and the summer I played it through. A few years ago, you could grab Grim Fandango for free, so I did and started playing. I had played it before and had good memories of it, but at that moment I was going through some rough times. While I was playing, one of my roommates said, "I think it's the first time I've seen you smiling." So yeah, Grim Fandango has a special place in my heart. It's amazing how well written games can bring you out of a bad place and forget about it for a while, or get through it entirely. And around that time LucasArts got storytelling down to a T, made you free, like you could really connect with the characters and care what happens to them. There are a lot of good games these days, but feel like they are missing something that previous games had. BioShock. I don't really have a special reason other than it had a real impact on me. No other game has manipulated my emotions as skillfully as that game did. By the time I finished it, I felt enriched in kind of way that only the best movies/books do to you. It was so carefully constructed and well written with real imagination. It really inspired me. It was key in getting me interested in writing my own fiction. Stardew Valley. I'm a medic and firefighter, and got PTSD after seeing some very violent deaths of children. I was super on edge, hyper aware of everything, anxious, and suicidal. I couldn't sleep without nightmares. Stardew Valley gave me a calm focus and made me fall in love with the idea of a rural life. I ended up buying a farm and have been living the dream since. Doom 2016. My parents are really strict. I managed through the years to collect the money to buy the game. I get zero allowance or gifts. It's not that we don't have the money. We're honestly in a slightly above average situation. They don't like the idea of me having money or things of my own. So I got the game. I have 100% in it. I mostly played the game when I was angry at my parents and helped me keep Commander Find. If you get the chance, Doom Eternal is a phenomenal sequel. Completely agree with you. I have never played a game before that has given me such a mental/physical rush. Only game that made me shout "I am a god" when I was playing it on Ultra Nightmare when successfully completing the Slayer Gates. I miss that feeling. World of Warcraft. I met my wife playing it. We are celebrating our 9th anniversary next week. Yeah, WoW was the big one for me. My first real experience with what a game can be. I still remember I experienced that first time I went into Stormwind, seeing hundreds of people running around on their own little adventures. So much to explore and everything was new and fresh. Halo 3. The culture around it, the lobbies, grinding for the legendary Recon armor, the playlists for almost every style of game you wanted, the custom games bar fight, Jenga, and a few others I can't remember, but real ones will know what I'm saying. And the soundtrack. As close to a perfect game as I've ever seen. Honorable mention. Call of Duty franchise from COD 4, Black Ops 2. A phenomenal run that provided me with years of classic memories. I know this is kind of corny, and I don't consider myself a gamer, but I felt the need to share. Guitar Hero. My dad used to stay up with me until I would fall asleep, playing Guitar Hero together. My dad used to play this old Kirby game on Nintendo and Zelda in the gold cartridge. I would fall asleep to that every night as a child. He passed away 3 years ago this month. It's so not corny. Those are some of my favorite memories. Thanks for sharing. 3. The Last of Us. The original one. What a ride that was. It made me attached to the characters on an emotional basis, as if they were real. Helped me cope with a lot of outside stress. Red Dead Redemption 2. I was dealing with a very nasty breakup with my soon-to-be ex-husband when my best friend ever suggested the game. Me and her have been playing it ever since. It's a great source of escapism for me. And I now quite appreciate those times. Gonna sound sad to say, but I treated the camp like my own friends in the pandemic. Super Mario Bros. 3. It came out when I was 8. The daycare I went to had some Northeast's consoles, and the older kids played them on a rotating basis in 20-minute blocks. We could bring games from home, and one kid had SMB3, and we spent most of the summer playing it as a group when we weren't outside or on a field trip. Club Penguin. Met my first online girlfriend, then we later broke up after an hour. DDLC was something that took my mind off of the world for a while. Somehow it actually helped my mental state. My husband played this with me watching one night. Didn't tell me what it was, and he didn't really know too much either. We ended up staying up all night and only getting 4 hours of sleep before work, so we could finish the game. It's a night I truly cherish. Coming out a hard breakup, I decided to play Hellblade: Senua's Sacrifice again. I had started it, but not finished yet. The game deals with mental health issues which I also deal with, although in a very different way: mourning and acceptance. I played it like 3 times in a row and tried to process my grief and sadness through the journey of Senua through hell. Being able to smash some heads with a sword helps a bit. Today marks 11 years since my best friend Mike Near was killed by a drunk driver. My buddy was just trying to leave work. We had just gotten done over the weekend playing 3 days straight of Gears of War Horde and Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter with some dapples of Halo 3 in there. When I moved back home, after dropping out of college, I was depressed, had no job. I moved back in with my parents, and my buddy Mike was there to hang out and take my mind off things while I looked for new work and a place to live and start school for something else. I will always cherish those last days and months we had gotten together. Miss you, brother. Don't drink and drive tonight, everyone. Stay safe. Fallout: New Vegas. When it came out in 2010, it was the first male-rated game my parents allowed me to buy when I was 15, and at the time my circle of friends in high school deteriorated. It was nice to play a game that let me do what I wanted while having a story that didn't feel like it was talking down to me. It makes me sad that it's since been overhyped in a way that turns people off to it. IDK if you still own it. But on PC it is still a good game, and with the mods still being created to make the game more fun and interesting, including extra missions. I think the mod that allows you to find a baby in the wasteland and adopt him, take care of him, feed him, etc. is awesome. I find it so badass shooting down NCR and Legionnaires alike for the glory of New Vegas, all while having a mewling infant strapped to my back. 2004. We moved to a new town at the end of the school year. My mom drove me to school the last month of the year thinking it would be a good idea to finish out the year where I started. Now, I was in a new town with no friends. It turns out moving to that town meant we could upgrade from dial-up to cable internet. So I downloaded the 2004 demo I knew about at 99 because the computer teacher would play it during lunch and it ran well on my family's new computer. I got the game for my birthday and made a bunch of online friends that summer which helped me keep my sanity. I got into a pretty good clan. It was a ton of fun. Tomb Raider 2nd, the classic one. I played it in the summer of 1999 as an HEO with my dad and my uncle. We each played in our respective computers. My father gave me his old one that summer, and it was kind of a race. Every time we met we'd talk about where we were at the game or what puzzle we'd just beaten. It was the first true bonding experience I've had with my father, who is a kind soul, but on the distant side of the emotional scale. I could talk with two adults eye to eye for the first time, as we now had something in common, and they didn't look down on me when I spoke. Maybe it seems ordinary, but it meant the world to me at the time and I remember that summer, and that game, fondly. The Sims 2 and 3. My best friend in high school used to come over, and we'd hang out, while she played it on my computer and I watched TV. We don't get to see each other that often 10 years out of high school and our lives have taken different paths. But I will always cherish those halcyon days. Unturned. I spent so many hours with my friends fping and getting our bases wiped. We were never good, but we spent so much time doing this together. Celeste warmed my heart exactly when I needed it. 3. Assassin's Creed 2nd and Brotherhood. Played it with my brother when I was in 8th grade. Sometimes I still well up when I recall those memories. We just used to have so much fun. We used to play it on this boxy old PC. Those moments really were some of the best ones in my life. Ocarina of Time will always be special to me. I used to have sick days off school and I would watch my mum play. I was supposed to be sick. She was ahead of me, so I picked up tips of where to go next in my save. I played Wind Waker while she was sick. She never got to play through it though. Her hands weren't so good then. After she died, I found Guild Wars and TES 4, Oblivion. I still play Guild Wars 2 and vote my friends with the stupid amount of lore I know about the games. I literally went on a 20-minute long ramble just a few days ago. Nobody stopped me. Bastards. Portal 2. I'd been playing it, but hadn't yet beaten it, around when my partner passed suddenly and unexpectedly. When I went back to the game a few months later it felt like my first time playing it. I'd been through so much in that time, that many of the levels and their solutions were novel to me, and I had to refigure them out. Life is Strange. Only game to actually make me cry. And then Before the Storm did it again. The Witcher 3rd. I played it non-stop after I broke up with my long-term so. The breakup was slightly complicated, painful, and not something I wanted to do, but the moral aspects of Geralt's story are a reminder that sometimes we have to make the most difficult decisions for the greater good at times. On more of a technical note, the gameplay and exploration was just so good, and it felt almost relieving to live in someone else's world instead of my own for a while. Diddy Kong Racing. My entire family loved playing it together. Especially my mom. Minecraft. Specifically the end and the little story that scrolls by when you jump through the portal after defeating the Ender Dragon. The first time I ever read it was with a friend who disappeared a month later. We had cheated items and were in creative mode to defeat the dragon. Just messing around and having fun. She was one of the first online friends I'd ever had. I was 17 and had been in the mental hospital for 6 months and abandoned by my mother to live with my grandparents. We read the story out loud together and cried. Despite living thousands of miles apart and never having seen each other in person, I felt like we were hugging in that moment. I'll never forget it. and I'll never not cry when reading that story, because it will be forever connected to Brianna. Bree, if you magically see this, I never forgot, never will. I miss you, and I love you. It's been 6 years now, but you still hold a special place in my heart. I hope the world is treating you well, and that you have everything you've ever dreamed of. Night in the Woods and Firewatch. I watched a playthrough of them while at my absolute lowest. I was quitting substances and had just been through an abusive relationship that had a really rough breakup. I watched a YouTube playthrough episode by episode while I got better during about a month straight of just being in bed. I was 16 at the time, so thankfully my parents took care of me. I fixated myself on these games, and it helped keep me from relapsing or slipping into any harder of a depression. People say they are just games, but for some of us it means more for a reason. Dragon Age 2nd. I had lost my mom a few months prior to playing it, and the part where you talk to Aveline after the All That Remains quest really stuck with me. Especially the as little or as much as you want. No one tells you how to mourn line. Final Fantasy 14th. I met a cute cat boy at a node in Mordona. Then we met in real life. Now he's my husband. It came out fairly recently, but Amori. After last year, to say I was apathetic to everything would be an understatement. To get me to go from damn near total apathy about everything to, you know what, even though what has happened was so many different ways of horrible, but maybe everything is going to be okay, said something special to me. Halo Reach. It was one of the first games I ever fell in love with when I first got my Xbox. Me and the boys would play for hours every Friday night, and some of my fondest gaming memories are from Reach. Must have played the campaign 100 times. Still gets me when Emil and Carter die. Original EverQuest. I made friends. We laughed, cried, grew up together. It was magical and real at the same time. I do not know who I would be today without all those hours spent in game. Lots and lots of fond memories. Flesson from A&E wishing you all the very best. Red Dead Redemption. My dad walked in while I was playing one day, looked at the TV and said, "Oh, what are you watching?" When I told him it was a game, he was fascinated and absolutely blown away by the graphics and story. He would frequently sit down and watch me play. He passed away almost 6 years ago. With how much he loved the first one, I just wish he could have seen the second one. A game called Toontown. When I was 9, I was in and out of hospitals, and Toontown was the game that made me happy and have fun. To this day I still played it. The original shut down, so I play the rewritten version, and while it is a kid's game I'll still play it. Whether my friends might make fun of me, I'll still enjoy the game because of the memories it brought. Earthbound. I used to watch my aunt play it on the Northeasts that was built into a core TV. The background on the battle animations is so trippy. She never did beat it. Some 15 or so years later I find a cartridge in an old second-hand store. I've beat it 3 times. Mass Effect helped me escape the reality of an abusive now ex-partner. Watch Dogs. Because it was what I was playing when I found out my grandfather had liver cancer. The Legend of Zelda. Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword. When I was little and was afraid of playing Zelda cause I didn't wanna lose, I watched my dad play all the way through them. One time we stayed up till 1 AM and I was just watching him play the whole time, and I'll always remember those moments. Zelda has always been something we could bond over. He hasn't died or anything, and he is in good health, but those 2 games are my favorite video games of all time, just because of the connection my brain made between them and my dad. To this day I've played every Zelda game, and have beaten almost all of them, including those 2. I'm not a gamer, but I used to play Rocket Power Beach Bandits, and there was just something about sitting on the floor, playing that game, while eating the burger and fries my mom made. That was just relaxing to me. Also playing Army Men, Team Assault with my friend. The ambience of that game put me in like a calming trance. To be walking around those big open spaces and the only sound is the footsteps. I have multiple games that mean a lot to me. 1. Battlefield Bad Company 2. IBC2 slot. When I was young, and I loved it. Allowed me to forget about school and stress. 2. Dying Light. This is the biggest game I adore. I met my friend while playing, and we have still been playing together for 5-6 years. Without him I would be a lot more depressed than I am. I love the game for allowing me to find my best and only friend. 3. Rainbow Six Siege. The game me and my friend play. Black Ops/Black Ops 2. A bit cliche, but man, they were much simpler times. Pre-nerf PDW-57 was the speep. Twisted Metal 3/4. My dad loved those games and played them with me all the time. As soon as he got home from work, if I wasn't working on homework still, he would see if I would play it with him. I really miss those days and miss my dad. For me it's Undertale. Sure, there are many games which are flashier and cooler than it, but Undertale was something unique. I was introduced to this game when pubg started his gameplay. Sure enough, I started playing it too. If you haven't played it, just give it a try. I recently started it, and it's my new favorite RPG. The humor is great, the combat is innovative and awesome, and it's very wholesome. I like how you can spare monsters instead of committing a murder. Got great music too. Hellblade. I was going through some dark times, and it felt like a weight lifted off my shoulders playing a protagonist with a story focusing on their pitch black darkness. When I was a kid I was really bullied. Video games were all I had to escape reality, and I empathized a lot with Squall in Final Fantasy VIII. Played until consumed 2 of the 4 discs. Breath of the Wild. I played it obsessively after my partner died. It kept my mind off of everything else, and even made me laugh a few times. Games help with grief so much sometimes. I'm sorry for your loss. Halo 3. Beating in on Legendary with my younger brother is a memory I'll always cherish. We were so pumped when we beat it. Also World of Warcraft. 15 years of playing it with my brothers and best friend. We'll probably be playing WoW till the very end. Street Fighter 2nd. I remember when it first came at a local arcade. I was maybe 2nd grade. It was the first video game I actually tried really hard to get good at. Then when Championship Edition came out on SNES it was all over. That summer I pretty much spent the whole summer playing it and making friends learn it, or trying to learn from friends' older brothers. I can gauge a lot of my life by what version of Street Fighter I was playing. The Outfit is the only game I remember my dad trying to play with me. Otherwise, he kept telling me to stop playing video games, haha. Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Not a specific game, but the Mass Effect trilogy has a very special place in my heart. I was a senior in high school and had just broken up with my first and only serious girlfriend. Her and I had been best friends freshman year, then stopped talking up until end of sophomore year when we reconnected. We broke up because we were going to school very far away from each other. I was absolutely broken. Completely miserable. Pretty much crying myself to sleep every night. I still saw her at school every day and we would still talk, but it killed me inside every time. Probably about 2 months after we broke up I picked up the first Mass Effect on Game Pass, and I fell in love. The characters were so deep and interesting, while the gameplay was a bit clunky and dated, and the Mako was whack as hell. I fell in love with the story. My favorite part was just exploring different worlds and talking to all my crewmates. After completing the first one I jumped straight into the second, as I had already owned it and never played it. I was blown away with the fact that my choices carried over from the first and narratively made an impact. The second vastly improved on the first in terms of gameplay. Still holds up fantastic today. The crewmates were even more interesting, and the storyline more intriguing. I was able to find the third one at a local games top 4-3, which was a blessing, because it was 20 digital on the Xbox store. I heard bad things about it because of the ending and all that stuff, but I had no issue with it. There was really only so many ways that story could end, and I thought it was a fun and satisfying conclusion. It tied up all the big questions I had with the storyline, and was really just a huge blast overall. Going on to the Krogan planet was definitely my favorite part. The ending when those people were looking up at the stars made me cry a little as well. Never got to experience the DLC and really excited for the remaster package. Mass Effect was a distraction for me during probably the lowest point in my life. I was broken. Waking up every day I was miserable and questioning my decisions. I found a world and storyline within me where I could truly make my own decisions, have interesting dialogue with fascinating characters, and bring warring races together to fight to save the universe.